15 years ago, if someone had told me that I'd meet the love of my life at a wedding, I probably wouldn't have believed them. I was never one for grand romantic gestures or the idea of fate bringing two people together. But then, there was Emily. The wedding was for a college friend I had lost touch with, but I went anyway, more out of obligation than excitement. I barely knew anyone there, and by the time the reception started, I was already thinking about making an early exit. That was when Emily found me, standing awkwardly by the bar, swirling my drink and trying not to look as out of place as I felt. She walked up to me with a confident smirk and said, "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." That one line, delivered with an amused glint in her eye, was all it took to pull me into a conversation that lasted the entire evening. Emily was unlike anyone I had ever met. She was beautiful, of course, tall, with striking green eyes and dark hair that framed her face in a way that made her look effortlessly elegant. But it was more than that. She had this energy about her, a way of making you feel like the only person in the room when she spoke to you. She was quick-witted, always ready with a clever remark, and she had a laugh that was completely infectious. That night, we talked about everything: our jobs, our childhoods, our favorite books and movies. By the end of the night, I was completely captivated. We started dating soon after, and from the very beginning, it was easy. Everything about being with Emily felt natural, like she was someone I had known forever. We went on long drives just for the sake of it, stayed up late talking about nothing and everything, and spent entire weekends trying out new restaurants just to argue over which one was the best. She had a way of turning even the most ordinary moments into something special. When I was with her, life just felt more exciting, more full. After a year of dating, I proposed. It wasn't a grand, elaborate plan. I wasn't one for flashy public gestures, and Emily wasn't the kind of woman who needed them. One evening, while we were cooking dinner together in my tiny apartment, I simply turned to her and said, "I don't want to do life without you." She paused for a second, her eyes widening, and then she laughed, this bright, beautiful sound, and said, "Well, then I guess you better marry me." It was perfect. We got married in the fall, on a crisp October afternoon with the leaves turning shades of gold and red. It was a small wedding, just close friends and family, nothing too extravagant, just the way we wanted it. Emily was breathtaking in a simple, elegant dress, and when I saw her walking down the aisle, I knew without a doubt that I was the luckiest man alive. Our life together started in a small house in the suburbs, not too far from the city where we both worked. It wasn't much at first, a modest two-bedroom home with a backyard that needed a lot of work, but it was ours. We spent weekends painting the walls, picking out furniture, and making it feel like home. Every little project, every trip to the hardware store, every late-night conversation about our future, it all built this life we were creating together. Emily worked in marketing, and she loved her job. She had this incredible way of understanding people, of knowing exactly how to sell an idea and make someone believe in it. I worked in finance, a career that was stable and predictable, which suited me just fine. Our jobs kept us busy, but we always made time for each other. Friday nights were reserved for takeout and movie marathons, Saturday mornings for long walks with coffee in hand. We traveled whenever we could, from beachside vacations to weekend getaways in the mountains. It was the kind of life I had always hoped for: simple, happy, filled with love. In the early years of our marriage, everything felt effortless. We were that couple, the ones who finished each other's sentences, who had their own little inside jokes, who could sit in comfortable silence without ever feeling awkward. We hosted dinner parties for friends, spent holidays with our families, and talked about the future with excitement. We had plans, dreams, all the things a couple building a life together should have. At night, I would sometimes watch Emily as she slept, her dark hair fanned out across the pillow, and I would wonder how I had gotten so lucky. She was my best friend, my partner, the love of my life. And as I lay there, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, I would think to myself, this is it. This is everything I've ever wanted. The early years of our marriage were some of the best of my life. Everything felt like an adventure, even the simplest things: Sunday morning trips to the farmer's market, spontaneous weekend road trips, lazy evenings curled up on the couch with a bottle of wine. Emily had a way of making the ordinary feel special, and with her, life never felt dull. After a couple of years in our little starter home, we decided it was time for an upgrade. We had both been doing well in our careers. Emily had climbed the ranks in her marketing firm, and I had just gotten a promotion at my finance job. So we started house hunting. We wanted something bigger, something that felt more like a forever home. When we found a beautiful, Two-story house in a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets and a backyard big enough for summer barbecues. We knew it was the one. It needed some work, but we were excited to make it our own. The move felt like a fresh start, a new chapter in our lives. We spent weekends painting walls, picking out furniture, and arguing over things like kitchen backsplash designs and whether or not we really needed a fancy espresso machine. Emily won that one, and I had to admit, it was a game changer. The house slowly became a reflection of us, a place filled with warmth and laughter. We also started talking more seriously about the future. Kids had always been part of the plan, though we weren't in a rush. We wanted to enjoy a few more years of just the two of us, traveling, focusing on our careers, and simply enjoying each other's company. Emily always said she wanted 2, maybe 3, and we would joke about what kind of parents we'd be. She swore I'd be the strict one, while she'd be the fun, laid-back mom. I wasn't so sure. Emily had a stubborn streak, and I had a feeling she'd be tougher than she gave herself credit for. Our friends started settling down, too. A few couples in our circle had kids already, and we loved being the cool aunt and uncle, spoiling our friends' children and then handing them back at the end of the day. It felt like we were watching the blueprint of our own future play out in front of us, and while we weren't quite ready to take that step yet, we knew it was coming. Life had a rhythm to it, and it was a good one. Weekdays were filled with work, gym sessions, and late-night conversations about everything and nothing. Weekends were for exploring. Sometimes that meant hiking trails a few hours away, and sometimes it just meant trying a new restaurant downtown. Emily had this insatiable curiosity about the world, and she pulled me into it with her. She also had a talent for bringing people together. Our home quickly became the go-to spot for gatherings, game nights, dinner parties, summer cookouts. Emily thrived in those moments, moving effortlessly between conversations, making sure everyone was having a good time. I loved watching her in those moments, seeing how effortlessly she commanded a room without even trying. She had this way of making people feel special, of making them feel seen. It was one of the many reasons I fell in love with her. But it wasn't just the exciting moments that made me love our life together. It was the small things, too. The way she'd steal the blankets in the middle of the night and then act completely innocent in the morning. The way she'd sing off-key in the shower, completely unbothered by how bad it sounded. The way she'd rest her head on my shoulder when we watched movies, even if she'd seen them 100 times before. We had built something real, something solid. A life filled with love, laughter, and plans for the future. And in those years, I truly believed nothing could ever change that. If you asked anyone who knew us, they would have said we had the perfect marriage. And honestly, I believed it too. Emily and I were the kind of couple that people admired, the ones who always showed up to parties together, laughing and finishing each other's sentences. We had inside jokes, routines, and years of memories that made up the foundation of our relationship. Looking back, it felt like we had it all. By our 7th year of marriage, we had settled comfortably into our lives. Our house had transformed into the home we had always dreamed of, warm, inviting, and filled with personal touches. Emily had decorated it with the kind of effortless style that made it look like something out of a magazine. She had an eye for detail, whether it was the perfect centerpiece for our dining table or the exact shade of blue that made the living room feel cozy but not too dark. I used to joke that if she ever got tired of marketing, she could become an interior designer. Our careers kept us busy, but we always made time for each other. Weeknights were for winding down together, cooking dinner, watching our favorite shows, or just sitting on the back patio with a couple of drinks, talking about our day. Emily's job in marketing had become more demanding, but she thrived under pressure. She had recently taken on a bigger role, which meant more late nights at the office, but I was proud of her. She was ambitious, driven, and everything I had always admired in a person. I had my own share of work stress, but Emily was always my safe space. No matter how long or exhausting the day had been, coming home to her felt like hitting the reset button. She had this way of making everything feel okay, even when it wasn't. If I was stressed, she'd run her fingers through my hair and tell me it would all work out. If she had a tough day, I'd pull her into a hug and remind her that she was capable of handling anything. We were a team. That's what marriage was supposed to be. We had fallen into a routine, but it was a good one. Fridays were our designated date nights, something we started early in our marriage and never let go of. Sometimes we'd go out, trying a new restaurant, catching a movie, or even just grabbing ice cream and taking a walk through the city. Other times, we'd stay in, order takeout, and spend the evening in pajamas, playing board games or watching old movies. It didn't really matter what we did. What mattered was that we were together. Holidays were another thing we cherished. Christmas was always spent with our families, a whirlwind of laughter, good food, and long conversations by the fireplace. Thanksgiving was our holiday, just the two of us. We had a tradition of cooking together, even though Emily was much better at it than I was. I handled the turkey, she handled everything else, and somehow it always turned out perfect. We also traveled whenever we could. Emily had a deep love for exploring new places, and she had a way of making every trip feel like an adventure. Whether it was a tropical beach vacation or a weekend getaway to a nearby town, she made even the smallest trips memorable. She was the type to wake up early on vacation just to watch the sunrise, pulling me along with her no matter how much I grumbled about needing more sleep. At night, when we finally collapsed into bed after another busy day, she'd curl up next to me, her head resting against my chest, and sigh in contentment. "I love our life," she'd whisper sometimes, and I'd kiss the top of her head, knowing exactly what she meant. We had a good life. A great life. A life I wouldn't have traded for anything in the world. If only I had known how fragile it really was. If someone had asked me then if I trusted Emily, I would have said yes without hesitation. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, my partner, the woman I had spent years building a life with. Trust wasn't even something I had ever questioned until I had to. It started with little things. Things that, on their own, meant nothing, but when put together, started to form a picture I didn't want to see. One evening, Emily came home later than usual. That wasn't necessarily unusual. Her job had always been demanding, and late nights at the office were part of it. But something felt different. When she walked through the door, there was a nervous energy about her, like she was waiting for me to say something. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and casually mentioned that a last-minute work meeting had run late. It was a reasonable excuse, but something about the way she said it made me pause. Her tone was too light, too rehearsed, like she had thought about her answer before even stepping through the door. I told myself I was overthinking it. I had no reason to doubt her. But then, a few days later, I noticed her phone. Emily had never been the type to be glued to her phone, not even when we first started dating. She was always present, engaged in whatever was happening around her. Lately, though, she had been more attached to it. At first, I told myself it was just work. Her job required a lot of communication, after all. But then, one night while we were watching a movie, I glanced over and saw her screen light up. The name on the screen wasn't familiar, just a generic contact name like Alex M. She quickly flipped the phone over and continued watching the movie like nothing had happened. Something about the way she did it made my stomach twist. I wasn't the type to snoop. I never had been. But that night, as Emily slept beside me, her phone resting on the nightstand, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. My mind went to war with itself. What are you doing? She's your wife. You trust her. Looking at her phone would make you the bad guy. I didn't look. I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. But the doubts were there now, lurking in the back of my mind, whispering questions I didn't want to ask. The real turning point came a couple of weeks later. Emily had been distant, not in an obvious way, but in small, almost imperceptible ways. She laughed a little less, her mind seemed elsewhere more often, and when I'd ask her about her day, she'd give vague answers, like she was holding something back. Then, one Saturday morning, I woke up to find her getting dressed in a hurry. She usually slept in on weekends, especially after a long work week, but today, she was dressed before I even opened my eyes fully. "Where are you going?" I asked, still groggy. She turned to me, fastening her earrings. "Brunch with the girls," she said easily, flashing me a quick smile. That made sense. Emily had a close-knit group of friends she saw from time to time. But something was off. She had put on a new dress, one I hadn't seen her wear before, and she had done her makeup with more care than usual. She looked beautiful, effortlessly stunning, but this wasn't her usual brunch with the girls look. This was the kind of effort she put in for a date night. I sat up. "I didn't know you had plans." She hesitated for half a second, so quick I almost missed it. Before replying, it was last minute. "Ashley texted me last night." I nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "Okay. Have fun." She kissed my cheek and left, and I lay back down, staring at the ceiling. I told myself there was nothing wrong, that I was imagining things. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I wanted to ignore it. I really did. For years, I had trusted Emily without a second thought, and I wasn't about to become the kind of husband who obsessed over where his wife was or who she was talking to. That wasn't me. That wasn't us. But once suspicion starts creeping in, it's impossible to ignore. It lingers, festering in the back of your mind, whispering doubts that won't go away. At first, I made excuses for her. Maybe she really had been busy at work. Maybe the late nights, the sudden brunches, the new dresses, and the increased phone usage were all just coincidences. But coincidences pile up. And when they do, they start to look a lot like patterns. One evening, we were getting ready for bed when Emily received a message. I was brushing my teeth, and through the mirror, I caught her reflection as she checked her phone. The second she read the message, her whole demeanor changed. She wasn't smiling, but her expression wasn't neutral either. It was something else, something I couldn't quite place. Then, just as quickly, she turned off her phone and set it face down on the nightstand. "Who was that?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. She barely glanced at me. "Ashley." Something about the way she said it felt too quick, too automatic, like she had been expecting the question. I nodded, not pushing further, but inside, I felt it, the gnawing sense that I was being lied to. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, listening to the quiet hum of the ceiling fan, staring up at the darkness. Emily's breathing was soft and steady beside me, but my mind was racing. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be the husband who never had to question his wife. But doubts don't just disappear. Once they take root, they grow. The next weekend, she said she had another girls' brunch. This time, I paid closer attention. She left in a rush, wearing a new outfit again, heels this time, something she usually only wore for special occasions. I watched from the window as she got into her car, my stomach twisting into knots. An hour later, I decided to call Ashley. We weren't close, but we had known each other long enough that a casual conversation wouldn't seem odd. She answered after a few rings. "Hey, Ashley," I said, keeping my tone light. "Emily said she was meeting you for brunch today. I just wanted to check if she left her sunglasses at home. She was looking for them before she left." There was a pause. A long one. Then Ashley said, "Oh, no. I haven't seen Emily in a couple of weeks. Is everything okay?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a chuckle. I must have misheard her. "No worries." I ended the call and sat there, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to believe there was some logical explanation, that maybe Ashley had forgotten or that Emily had made other last-minute plans. But deep down, I knew. Emily had lied to me. And now, I needed to know why. I wanted to trust Emily. I really did. But after catching her in that lie about brunch, something inside me changed. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Every little thing she did felt different now, every glance at her phone, every vague excuse, every sudden change in plans. Maybe before, I would have ignored it, chalked it up to stress or coincidence, but now, I was watching. And the more I watched, the less sense things made. She had started going out more. At first, it was just the occasional work meeting running late. But soon, there were more impromptu brunches, more unexplained errands, more nights where she came home just a little too happy, a little too breathless. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was letting my imagination get the best of me. But I couldn't ignore how distant she felt, like she was physically there but mentally somewhere else. One night, we were lying in bed when she got a text. She had her phone on silent, but I noticed the screen light up from the corner of my eye. Emily was quick, too quick, to flip the phone over, tucking it under the pillow like she didn't even want me to see the notification. "Who was that?" I asked, my voice careful. She barely glanced at me. "Ashley." There it was again. Ashley. The same friend who hadn't seen her in weeks. I nodded, pretending not to care. But inside, my stomach twisted into knots. A few days later, she came home wearing perfume. Not just any perfume, the expensive kind she usually saved for date nights or special occasions. It clung to her skin, unmistakable, filling the room when she walked in. I looked up from the couch. "You smell nice." "Special occasion?" She hesitated, just for a second, before flashing me a smile. "Oh, yeah. Some of the girls from work wanted to grab drinks after the meeting. I guess I got a little carried away." She said it so easily, so smoothly, that if I hadn't been paying attention, I would have believed her. But I was paying attention. Emily had never been a good liar. When she was telling the truth, she was direct, confident. But when she was lying, she over-explained. She gave details nobody had asked for. And that's exactly what she was doing now. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. The next week, she had another sudden plan, this time. A work dinner she had forgotten to mention. I tried to act normal, but my mind wouldn't let it go. I found myself picturing her out somewhere, dressed up, laughing at someone else's jokes, leaning in just a little too close. The thought made me sick. When she came home that night, I was waiting. Not angrily, not accusingly, just waiting. She looked surprised to see me awake, almost startled, like she hadn't expected to have to face me right away. "How was dinner?" I asked. She smiled, but there was something in her eyes. "Good. Just a long night. You know how those work events can be." I nodded. "Who was there?" For a split second, she froze, just barely, but I caught it. Then she rattled off a list of names I barely recognized, coworkers she had never mentioned before. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But as she kissed my cheek and headed upstairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. And for the first time in our marriage, I started to wonder, was my wife in love with someone else? Doubt had taken over my life. It was no longer just a passing thought or an uncomfortable feeling in my gut. It was an obsession. Every little thing Emily did felt suspicious. Every time she glanced at her phone, every unexplained night out, every vague excuse, it all felt like more proof that something was wrong. I had tried to ignore it, to push the thoughts away, but they always came creeping back. I wasn't sleeping well. I found myself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations in my head, looking for inconsistencies. During the day, I struggled to focus at work, my mind constantly drifting back to Emily. Where was she? Who was she with? Was she lying to me again? I wasn't the kind of man who jumped to conclusions. I had never been jealous or possessive. I had always believed that trust was the foundation of a marriage. But now, that trust was gone, replaced by something dark and suffocating. I felt like I was losing my grip, like I was spiraling down a path I couldn't turn back from. And then, the thought came to me, an idea so insane, so terrifying, that I almost pushed it away the second it entered my mind. What if the kids weren't mine? The second I thought it, I couldn't unthink it. It hit me like a freight train, leaving me breathless, my heart pounding in my chest. No, it wasn't possible. Emily wouldn't do that to me. Would she? I tried to dismiss it, but it clung to me like a shadow. I started noticing things I had never questioned before. Our older child had always looked a little different from me, different eye color, slightly different facial features, but I had never given it a second thought. Genetics were unpredictable. But now? Now, every difference felt like evidence. I tried to remind myself that this was crazy, that I had no real reason to doubt my children were mine. But the thought had burrowed into my mind, and there was only one way to get rid of it. I needed proof. I spent an entire night researching DNA tests. It wasn't hard to get one. There were kits available online, simple enough to use at home. The hardest part wasn't finding a test, it was making the decision to actually do it. I felt sick as I ordered it, my hands shaking as I typed in my address. What kind of man was I to question his own children? What if I was wrong? What if this was just paranoia eating me alive? But the bigger question loomed over me, heavier than all the others. What if I was right? The test arrived a few days later, and I stared at the package like it was a ticking bomb. My hands were cold as I opened it, carefully reading the instructions. All I needed was a simple cheek swab. It should have been easy. But nothing about this felt easy. When the kids were asleep, I went into their room, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt like a thief in my own home. My hands were unsteady as I gently swabbed the inside of their cheeks, whispering silent apologies to them as they slept peacefully, unaware of the storm raging inside me. The next morning, I sealed the test kit, addressed the envelope, and drove straight to the post office. My fingers trembled as I dropped it into the mailbox. There was no turning back now. In a few days, I would know the truth. And I wasn't sure I was ready for it. The waiting was unbearable. Every day, I found myself checking my email, my phone, the mailbox, anywhere the results might come in. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was being ridiculous, that I would open the results, see my name as the father, and finally be able to breathe again. But deep down, I knew. I had known for weeks, maybe even months. I had just been too afraid to admit it. The day the results arrived, I was alone. Emily was at work, the kids at school. The house felt eerily quiet, the air thick with something I couldn't name. My hands trembled as I ripped open the envelope. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. And then I saw it. Probability of paternity, 0%. The words blurred in front of me. My mind refused to process them. It had to be a mistake. A lab error. Something. Anything. But then, I looked at the second set of results. Second child, probability of paternity, 0%. A cold numbness spread through my body. I had spent years raising these kids. I had held them in my arms when they were babies, kissed their scraped knees, read them bedtime stories. I had loved them with everything I had. and they weren't mine. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the paper, my brain refusing to fully grasp what it was reading. But as I turned to the second page, my stomach clenched painfully. The test hadn't just confirmed I wasn't the father. It had identified who was. Second child, probability of paternity match, 99.9%. My brother. I felt like I was going to be sick. My stomach twisted violently, and for a moment, I thought I might actually throw up. My brother. My own flesh and blood. The one person in the world who should have had my back. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor, the sound sharp in the dead silence of the house. My hands clenched into fists as a wave of fury crashed over me, drowning out everything else. Emily had lied to me for years. She had let me raise 2 children that weren't mine. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and my own brother had helped her do it. The rage was so overwhelming I could barely think straight. My hands shook with the urge to smash something, to scream, to demand answers. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't going to end quietly. Rage doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in, slowly, poisoning everything. It starts in your gut, twisting and turning until it reaches your chest, burning through every rational thought you've ever had. When I saw those results, when I saw in cold, clinical percentages that my own brother had fathered one of the children I thought were mine, it was like something inside me snapped. For days, I barely spoke to Emily. I couldn't. I was afraid of what I'd say, what I'd do. I watched her go about life as if nothing had changed, completely oblivious to the storm about to tear through everything she had built on lies. I waited. I needed a plan. And then, one night, she came home late, another work meeting that I now knew was just another lie. I was waiting for her, sitting at the kitchen table, the DNA results in front of me. She walked in, tossing her purse onto the counter, looking surprised to see me awake. "Hey," she said cautiously. "Everything okay?" I didn't say anything at first. I just slid the papers across the table toward her. "Read it." She frowned, picking up the papers, scanning them quickly. I watched as her expression changed confusion, then shock, then something else. Something like fear. "Where did you get this?" she stammered. "That's not the question you should be asking, Emily," I said, my voice eerily calm. "The question you should be asking is, how long have I known?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in years, I saw it, the guilt, the cracks in her carefully constructed lies. "How long, Emily?" I pressed, standing up. "How long have you been making a fool out of me?" Tears welled in her eyes. I can explain." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, I bet you can." I stepped closer, towering over her now. "Tell me, was it just once? Or did you spend years sneaking around behind my back?" She sniffed, looking down at the floor. "It wasn't supposed to happen now." I slammed my fist against the table, making her jump. "Don't give me that bullshit." My voice was shaking, but I didn't care. "You had 2 kids, Emily. 2. One of them with my own brother. That's not a mistake. That's a goddamn lifetime of betrayal." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I never wanted to hurt you." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "Well, congratulations. You did." But Emily wasn't the only one who needed to pay. The next morning, I drove straight to my brother's office. I didn't call. I didn't text. He had no idea what was coming. He worked for me, had worked for me for the last 5 years. I had given him a job when he needed one, helped him get back on his feet after he had gone through his own rough patch. I had trusted him. And this was how he repaid me? When I walked in, his secretary barely had time to greet me before I pushed straight through to his office. He looked up from his desk, surprised. "Hey, man," he started, standing up. "What's—" I didn't let him finish. I threw the DNA results onto his desk. "Explain this." His face drained of color. He didn't even have to look at the papers. He knew exactly what they were. "Shit," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I can't know." "Don't." I cut him off. "Don't you dare try to explain this to me." I took a slow, measured breath, forcing myself to stay in control. "You were my brother." The word felt disgusting coming out of my mouth. "I trusted you. I gave you a job. I let you into my home. And all this time, you were screwing my wife." He swallowed hard. You're fired." His head snapped up. "What?" "You heard me," I said, my voice cold. "Get your shit and get out. I never want to see you again." "Come on, man," he said, stepping forward. "I know I messed up, but I took another step toward him, lowering my voice to a growl. "If you don't leave right now, I swear to God, I'll make sure you never work in this industry again." He stared at me, searching my face for any sign of mercy. But I had none left for him. Finally, he exhaled shakily, nodding. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. But I wasn't done yet. When I got home that night, Emily was still there, pacing the living room. The second I walked in, she ran toward me, her face streaked with tears. Please, she begged. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I shook my head, cutting her off. No, Emily. You broke this. And you don't get to fix it. She sobbed, clutching my arm. What about the kids? I pried her fingers off me, my heart like stone. They aren't mine. She gasped, as if hearing the words out loud made it real. I stepped back, my voice final. Get your things and get out. You're done here. And with that, I walked away, leaving her standing there, shattered. Just like she had left me. The house was quiet now. Too quiet. For years, my home had been filled with laughter, conversations, the sounds of a family going about their lives. Now, it felt hollow, like the shell of something that had once been full of life but had long since rotted from the inside. Emily was gone. My so-called brother was gone. And I was left standing in the ruins of the life I thought I had built. I should have felt relief. Satisfaction, even. I had done what I needed to do. I had thrown Emily out, fired my brother, cut them both out of my life like the disease they were. But all I felt was exhaustion. The first night alone, I sat in the dark, staring at the empty living room. Emily's perfume still lingered in the air. Her shoes were missing from the front door, her toothbrush gone from the bathroom sink, but traces of her were everywhere. The ghost of a life I no longer had. The kids. That was the part that hurt the most. They weren't mine. I knew that now, had the proof in my hands, but my heart hadn't caught up with my head yet. They had been my children for years. I had held them when they cried, taught them how to ride bikes, read them bedtime stories. None of that had changed, and yet, everything had. Emily had tried to call me. Multiple times. I ignored every single one. She had sent messages too, long, desperate ones, begging me to at least talk to her, to think about the kids, to not throw everything away. She didn't get it. She had thrown everything away. I wasn't the one who had destroyed this family. She had done that the moment she decided to betray me. She had done that the moment she looked at me, day after day, and let me believe in a lie. My brother was just as pathetic. He had sent a single message. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much, but I am. I stared at the screen, wondering if he expected me to forgive him. If he expected me to be the bigger person, to move on, to one day sit in the same room as him, and pretend like he hadn't stabbed me in the back. I deleted the message. There was no forgiveness coming. Not now. Not ever. The following days passed in a haze. I went to work, but I barely spoke to anyone. People knew something had happened, but no one dared ask. Maybe they had heard rumors. Maybe they just saw the look in my eyes and decided it was better not to get involved. My parents called. My mother's voice was tight with worry, my father's quiet but firm. We heard about your brother, my dad finally said after an awkward silence. Is it true? Yes. More silence. Then a sigh. What do you want us to do? That was the thing, I didn't know. Part of me wanted them to cut him off completely, to erase him from the family like he had never existed. But I knew they wouldn't. He was still their son. And unlike Emily, they hadn't betrayed me. I wouldn't make them choose. I don't care, I finally said. But I'm done with him. My mother started crying. My dad just said, okay. And that was that. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the house began to feel less like a graveyard. I threw away anything that reminded me of Emily. Photos, clothes she had left behind, little trinkets I once would have held on to. I repainted the walls. I changed the furniture. I made the space my own again. But the nights were still the hardest. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering. I thought about love, about trust, about how easily people could rip your life apart and not even seem to regret it. I wasn't sure I'd ever be the same again. Time doesn't heal all wounds. That's a lie people tell themselves to make things feel less permanent. Some wounds never fully close, they just stop bleeding. Weeks turned into months, and I adjusted to my new reality. The pain didn't go away, but it dulled, like a background noise I had learned to live with. I stopped waking up every morning expecting Emily to be next to me. I stopped reaching for my phone, half expecting a message from my brother. I stopped looking at my front door, thinking someone would walk through it and tell me this was all a bad dream. They were gone, and I was still here. At first, I kept to myself. I went to work, came home, ate dinner in silence, and went to bed. Rinse, repeat. People reached out. friends, family, but I wasn't ready to talk. They meant well, but what could they really say? No one could fix this. But eventually, I got tired of being alone. I forced myself to go out. I reconnected with friends, went to the gym more, even started picking up hobbies I had forgotten about. I focused on myself in a way I hadn't in years. It wasn't about revenge or proving something to anyone. It was about reclaiming the parts of me that had been buried under years of lies. Emily still tried to contact me from time to time. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. The kids, I still struggled with that. They weren't mine, but I had loved them like they were. Cutting them off hurt more than cutting her off ever did, but I had to. They weren't to blame for what had happened, but seeing them would be a reminder of everything I had lost. Maybe one day, I'd be strong enough to face that. But not yet. As for my brother, he was dead to me. I didn't ask about him. I didn't want to know what he was doing. As far as I was concerned, he no longer existed. One night, months after it all fell apart, I found myself sitting on my back porch, a drink in my hand, staring at the sky. It was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in a long time, I felt okay. Not great, not happy, but okay. I had survived. The life I had known was gone, but I was still here. And maybe, just maybe, that meant something. Maybe it meant that one day, I'd be more than just okay. Maybe it meant that one day, I'd start over. But for now, I just sat there, breathing in the night air, letting the past drift further and further away. And I knew, really knew, that it was finally over.